And welcome to this English lesson about cold and snowy weather. If you are wondering why my lessons are all about snow and cleaning the driveway and cold weather, it's because it's really cold here. It's very snowy and it's very wintry. You saw that probably in my last video. Last night was the coldest night of the year. It was minus 25 degrees Celsius. Right now it is 8:30 a.m. and outside it is minus 21 degrees Celsius. So I'm not super excited about going outside today. I'm sure it's going to be quite cold. But that just was the source of the idea for a lesson on cold and snowy weather. So once again, in this lesson, I'll teach you some words and phrases that we use to talk about cold and snowy weather. And I hope they are things, words and phrases that maybe you don't know and they're going to be new, or maybe you do know and it's good to do a review. So once again, welcome to this English lesson about cold and snowy weather. It's freezing. This is a phrase that you will hear very often in a country like Canada if you are in one of the colder provinces. When we say it's freezing, we mean it's really cold. So a phrase for extreme cold. It's obvious that when it's below zero, water will freeze. We know that. But we've taken the word freezing and we've turned it into a description of really cold weather. So Jen might go outside and come in and say, oh, it's freezing out there. I didn't realize how cold it was going to be. We regularly go out to start our cars so they warm up a bit, and then when you come in you say, oh, it's freezing out there. It is so cold. So it's freezing, a phrase that we use to describe extremely cold weather. Like if it was minus 2 Celsius, I wouldn't say it's freezing. If it's minus 10 Celsius, I would probably say it's freezing. So one of the reasons I'm doing this lesson is that we have been hearing about a polar vortex. It's a pretty complex description. I think it was even mentioned in last week's lesson by Moed. A polar vortex is when the cold air from the Arctic moves down and we are kind of in Arctic weather. So it's a mass of very cold air from the Arctic. So normally we are in an area where the air is relatively cold, like normal temperature would be -5, but now the bitter cold Arctic air is now hitting us, and so it is a lot colder. So they call this a polar vortex. So it's when a mass of very cold air from the Arctic moves over top of us, and that's when it gets super cold. Layers. When it is this cold, it is important that you dress in layers. If you see this gentleman here, it looks like he has a blue, if you just look right here, you can see there's a little bit of blue. He probably has a blue t-shirt. Over top of that, he probably has a black long sleeve t-shirt. And then on top of that, he has a red sweater. And then on top of that, he has a winter coat. So he's probably wearing 4 layers. He might even be wearing 5 layers. This is very common when you dress in layers. Multiple pieces of clothing worn together for warmth. The layers trap a little bit of air between each layer, and that helps you stay warm. It's kind of like your own personal insulation. So when I went outside the other day, I had 3 layers on my legs. I had 4 or 5 layers on my upper body, and then I even had a winter hat, a hood, and then another hood the other day. If you saw my members only video, you would have seen me in many layers. Sledding, tubing, tobogganing. In the winter, hills get covered with snow, and snow can be slippery. That means it's easy to slide on it. So as a kid, it's pretty common to go sledding, is sliding downhill on a sled over snow. So gravity pulls you down, and the snow is very slippery and allows you to slide. Tubing is similar, sliding down a snow-covered hill on a tube. This is actually, originally we would just use inner tubes from car tires or tractor tires. Those actually slide on the snow very, very well. This is a special made tube just for going down a hill. The benefit of tubing is that the inner tube or tube is soft and bouncy, because when you're going down on a sled, it can be very rough, and you're bouncing around. So when you're on a tube, it's a little more of a comfortable ride, but can also be pretty fast. And then tobogganing, sliding down a snow-covered hill on a long, flat sled called a toboggan. This is less common now. Less people have wooden toboggans. It's kind of a traditional type of sled. When I was a child, we did have a toboggan, and all of us could fit on it. So all 5 of us, my 2 brothers and 2 sisters, would all go on the toboggan and then slide down the hill. This is not a picture of us. This is some random photo. But if you want to enjoy winter, you would wear lots of layers, then go outside and maybe go sledding or tubing or tobogganing. All very fun activities when it's very, very cold. I don't use these, but tire chains are metal chains put on tires for traction on snow and ice. In my area of Canada, it usually doesn't get this bad. And chains are often used in areas where you might have to drive up or down a hill or mountain regularly. But I don't know anyone in my area that uses tire chains. But they will definitely give you good traction. So tire chains are metal chains put on tires for traction on snow and ice. If you watch the YouTube channel Martin Dulard, I don't know if you've ever watched it. He lives up in the mountains in Italy, and he regularly puts tire chains on his car in order to drive down the mountain or back up the mountain. So maybe if you search for Martin Dulard, D-O-O-L-A-A-R-D, he's a Dutch guy that lives in Italy, and he's kind of rebuilding this old house, and he's building a shop. It's pretty interesting. Anyway, I'll put a link in the description or in the comment below when I'm done. Frostbite. So extreme cold is very, very dangerous. When you go out when it's minus 10 or minus 15 or minus 20, it starts to become very important that you don't have your skin exposed to the cold air. You must wear gloves, and you might even need to wear what's called a ski mask, where only your eyes and mouth show, because otherwise you might get frostbite, injury to skin caused by extreme cold. And they'll even tell you how long it's safe to be outside with your skin exposed. They might say, don't stay outside for longer than 5 minutes, or you risk getting frostbite. So frostbite is when your skin actually freezes. So it's very important. Right now it's minus 21, I think it was earlier. It's very important that I wear gloves when I go outside. I will also wear a winter hat, but if I'm just running to my car, I might not. But frostbite, injury to skin caused by extreme cold. To shiver. So it's pretty common to shiver when it's cold. It means to shake because you are cold, and you might be aware of this if you go swimming somewhere where the water is cold. When you come out, you might be shivering. So it's where your body tries to warm itself up by making you shake. So to shiver, to shake because you are cold. Interestingly, I don't often shiver when I'm outside in the cold. I often shiver when I come back in and take off my layers. Sometimes it's not very warm in the house, or sometimes you get like when you get a lot of snow on your gloves and in your gloves, it can melt, and so your hands can get wet in cold weather, and then you will be very, very cold, and you will shiver a lot. To brave the cold. So this is a pretty interesting phrase. To be brave means to have courage. It means to do something even though it's hard. And we often use the phrase to brave the cold to talk about when you go outside despite very cold weather. If you have a dog, you have to brave the cold and take the dog for a walk. You probably don't want to go outside, but the dog has to go outside every day, 2 or 3 times to go for a walk, to go to the bathroom. So you need to brave the cold. If I look outside and think it's really cold, I still have to brave the cold and go to work. Like I can't just stay home because it's cold. I need to have courage. I need to decide that I'm going to go out and I'm going to do what I need to do. To be snowed in. When you're snowed in, it means you are unable to leave because of heavy snow. Jen and I were a little bit snowed in 3 times in the past week and a half. It wasn't anything major. Within an hour, I could clear the driveway and we were able to leave. But if it had kept snowing for days, eventually it becomes very difficult to get out. We might call that a blizzard, where the snow just keeps getting deeper and you can't keep the driveway clear. But to be snowed in, unable to leave because of heavy snow. Wind chill. So this is an interesting effect. It means feeling colder than it is because of the wind. And they'll actually give this a number. In fact, if I look at the weather for today, let me pull it up. So it's minus 23 in the town close to me, high of minus 12 today. The wind chill will make it feel like minus 22. So did you hear that? It's going to be a high of minus 12. But because of the wind, it will feel like minus 22. So that's the wind chill or the wind chill effect. Wind always makes it feel colder than it is. So if I go outside on a day where it's, this is going to sound kind of funny. If it was minus 22 with no wind and the sun was shining, that is actually a beautiful day to be outside. If it was minus 10, so 12 degrees warmer, but the winds were blowing at 50 or 60 kilometers an hour, that would be unbearable. You would not want to be outside for very long. If you are a member of the channel, you'll see I did a few members only videos. I think one's called It's Cold, the other one just says very, very cold. Both of those, it's mostly because of the wind. You can stay pretty warm outside when there is no wind. It can be very, very cold and you can stay pretty warm. Cold snap. Sudden cold weather. So this is something that can describe 2 things in my mind. It can be when it goes from like 1 degree to minus 10 overnight. It's a cold snap. But you could also say, oh, we're going to have a 3-day cold snap where it's going to be below minus 20 every day. So it simply means a sudden change in weather. We are not really in a cold snap right now. It's just cold every day, day after day. So I would use, instead I would just say it's freezing or it's very, very cold. Whiteout. When snow and wind make it hard to see, we usually use this term when we're talking about driving in bad weather. So a whiteout is when either it's snowing or drifting. Drifting snow is when the wind picks the snow up, or usually both. And there's so much snow that it's very difficult to see. It's very dangerous to drive when there are whiteout conditions. The other day, it was snowing and the wind was blowing and picking up snow, and we couldn't see the barn from the house. So those of you that are familiar with my property, because we were in whiteout conditions, it is not a good idea to drive when snow and wind make it hard to see. This is actually not too bad. I've driven in weather like this, but there are times where I have pulled over or pulled into a parking lot or even just gone to a restaurant even though I wasn't hungry because the whiteouts were so bad that it was dangerous to drive. Sometimes you just take a break and you check the day. Drifting. These kind of look the same, but in this picture, Drifting is snow from the ground lifted by the wind. So you see these little streaks of snow going across the pavement. That is what we would consider drifting snow. That snow is not coming from the sky. That snow is already on the ground, and the wind has picked it up and started to move it around. So in the winter, when it is very windy, there's a lot of drifting. Snow from the ground lifted by the wind, and then it often gets deposited somewhere else, usually in a snowdrift. So let me get this picture a little bit bigger for you. You can see here that this fence has caused the snow to pile up. Let me explain this a little bit. When wind picks up snow, when there is drifting, if there is something like a fence, when the wind hits it, the snow falls. So if you have a fence or a car or something outside where the snow is drifting, so it's being carried by the wind, and then when the wind has to go around, for some reason the snow will fall. Actually, it usually falls on the other side, so it gets lifted over and then it piles. So in this picture, the wind was coming the wind was coming this way, and as it went over the fence, it dropped its snow and caused a snowdrift, a pile of snow made by the wind. So on a day when there is drifting, you will start to see snowdrifts form, piles of snow made by the wind. And fun to play in if you're a kid.